Support for WUWM podcasts comes from University School of Milwaukee, fulfilling a values-based mission of developing learners, fostering leaders, and preparing citizens for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. More information at usm.org/mission.
From 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Today, we speak with a local farmer about pumpkin sales and how that might reflect feelings about the current economy. Then, our latest Books and Beyond explores some materials on Milwaukee mysteries, from spooky places, notorious events, and real people.
We're coming up on 150 in a couple of years. I mean, we are part of the community, and so what we collect, sometimes we just happen to have the stuff because we lived through the time with the community. So you never know what you might find.
Plus, in a new Bubbler Talk, we look into the history of the building that is now the Milwaukee Fire and Police Training Facility.
So I look at the building and I say, not built to be the Fire and Police Training Center. They do take care of it, but it's definitely, you can tell, it's not really built for that.
All that's coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Thank you so much for joining us today. This year, WUWM has committed to covering issues our listeners say are top priorities, including the economy. As a part of that coverage, we're exploring how the economy is impacting Wisconsinites with different financial needs and concerns. Tom Oberhaus is a co-operator of Cozy Nook Farm in Waukesha County. Cozy Nook is primarily a dairy farm, supplying milk to prairie farms mainly for their cheese products. The farm supplements its dairy businesses with seasonal pumpkin and Christmas tree sales. Lake Effect Sam Woods met with Oberhaus to check in on how his dairy business is going and what pumpkin sales can tell us about overall economic confidence in Waukesha County.
So Tom, if you can introduce yourself and your business and how you make money.
My name is Tom Oberhaus. My wife Joan is partner in the business. Cozy Nook Farm is our farm. We're a family farm, family dairy farm that has milked cows here since 1958. The pumpkin business, we'd have a very thriving pumpkin business here in the fall. That started in 1962 by my mother-in-law. And then in 1985, that's when my wife and I joined the operation. We needed another business to keep thriving, so we started a cut Christmas tree business too. So we market about 2,000 Christmas trees at Christmas time.
If you could take a step back and just kind of describe the history of Cozy Nook Farms and how you fit into it.
Okay, so Cozy Nook Farm actually started back in the middle 1800s. Then in 1957, it was displaced by when the interstate system went right through the farm. And my wife's grandfather came out of town here, about 6 miles out of town, and purchased this land. And my wife and I joined the operation in 1985. When we married and came back, our parents were in need of a little bit of physical help, and we bought them out in 2000. And now we're busy bringing the next generation into the operation.
So we'll get into the pumpkin side of the business here later in the interview, but at first I want to talk about the dairy side of your business. Can you describe the supply chain that you're a part of and your place in it?
Sure. So we milk 75 to 80 cows. And we have signed a marketing agreement with Prairie Farms Cooperative. We're a member of Prairie Farms Cooperative, which is about 600 dairymen stretching all across the Midwest. And it's up to Prairie Farms then to decide where to make best use of our milk, whether it goes in what we call the bottle, in the fluid milk, or into cheese or ice cream or whatever. They make those decisions and market the milk.
You mentioned that you have a contract with Prairie Farms, so your dairy milk goes to Prairie Farms where it becomes cheese. Would you say this is a typical business arrangement for dairy farmers, that you kind of supply one supplier and that's how you make money from this side of your business?
Pretty much. The vast majority of dairy farms throughout the country, yes, have a 100% agreement with their purchaser, and 100% of our milk goes to them. Yes, and that's the way most of the dairy farms operate.
And how has this side of the business gone so far this year? You can kind of speak generally here, but how is the dairy business these days?
So profits are very slim in the dairy industry for us right now. Milk price took a big plummet here in the last 6 weeks or so. Helping along that is that feed costs are kind of almost record lows right now too, because grain prices are very low. So it's very tight. The one thing that's helping the dairy industry right now is because beef is so short in America. Our bull calves are worth a tremendous amount of money, more than we'd ever imagine, or also our cull cows. So as dairy farmers, we're the beef end of things is an important profit angle for most of us, because all good dairy cows someday end up as beef eventually as they age out. And we all have bull calves being born on our farm, which are of no worth to us to make milk. And so, yeah, we as dairy farmers are in the beef business, and that's very, very vital right now.
You're listening to Lake Effect. I'm Sam Wood speaking with Tom Oberhaus here at Cozy Nook Farm. We were just speaking about the dairy side of your business, Tom, but I want to move into pumpkins. It's pumpkin season. As I drove up into the driveway here at Cozy Nook, there's pumpkins dotted all around. It looked like there was a school tour going on as well, kids playing in the hay bales and among the pumpkins. But can you describe the pumpkin side of your business and how that fits into the overall operation?
We live in a very urbanized area. That's why there's, if you go back to 1985 when my wife and I moved here, Waukesha County had over 300 dairy farms, and today we have about 10 of us left. So as the people moved in, the cows moved out. So it's important to us to figure out how to make a living. And so the pumpkin industry, or the pumpkin business, started on this farm in 1962. And it has grown tremendously. We sell about 20 acres worth of pumpkins right out of the front yard pretty much. We do a fair amount of little wholesale orders too. And we do lots of school tours. We typically in a fall season, a 6-week season or so, we'll do about 1,200 children that come through here to see where milk actually comes from and get a chance to take a hayride out to the fields to see what the crops look like growing in the field, and of course get a pumpkin. So we view it as a tremendous opportunity to give a little agricultural education to the youngsters.
How has this side of the business gone this year? I know we're in the middle of October now, so we are squarely in pumpkin season, but how's it looking so far?
Excellent. We actually started off a little slow because of the heat wave, I think. When it was in the middle 80s, people really aren't thinking about pumpkins. I think some people are still in their swimming pools in the backyard 2 weeks ago. But now that the cool fall weather has come in, sales are booming, and everybody seems to be in a great mood, and things are flowing very nicely.
So correct me if you see it differently, but pumpkins seem like one of those products that's a luxury, not a need for most people coming through here. And so high sales might signal, high economic confidence that we think times will be good in the future, and so we're going to spend some money on pumpkins. Do you see the pumpkin economy, so to speak? Do you see it the same way?
Yes, I do. Yes, I agree. Very, very few of the pumpkins we sell are to feed the family. Yes, we do sell some squash and we sell some pumpkin that you can eat and whatnot, but that's a very small part of the business. Mostly, it's just to have fun. It's enjoyment, and yes, I think most of these people are feeling very good about the economy, and yeah, they feel good about the future, and they're happy to have their children out here on the farm and running around and doing some farm type things. It's just a very, very positive feeling.
Would you say that most of your customers for pumpkins come from locally here in Waukesha County, or are you attracting people from maybe across the state?
Very, very high percentage are people within 10 miles. But I get more and more people. It's interesting, somebody finds us from further out, I'll say, like Milwaukee and whatnot, and now it turns into their annual trip to come to the farm because they don't have an opportunity to get on a farm, a real farm that's actually producing milk, and but most of our business is local.
I'm going to ask you to opine here a little bit, so if you're comfortable. Would you say that indicates that economic spirits are high here in Waukesha County, or do you see that maybe is a little bit more complicated than just people are buying pumpkins, so therefore spirits are high?
I'm not an economist, but just looking at the front yard, the people seem to be very happy, and they're happy to spend money on product that's just a fun thing to spend money on, a fun activity for the kids. Yes, from my perspective, very limited perspective here on the pumpkin yard, the economy is in great shape.
And for you and your business looking in the near future, is there anything you're looking forward to economically, or on the other side, concerned about economically in that near future?
We're not out to conquer the world. We like to have a business that we enjoy, and we make enough money to live the lifestyle we want to live. And so we don't have big, broad ideas of how to make things boom and grow. That's not who we are. We want to be who we are. We're farmers at heart, and we welcome people to come view our farm and our lifestyle. So we really don't have big, exuberant plans for the future. As far as concerns, when America goes through a real traumatic experience like 9/11 or something like that, yes, it hurts business bad because people are shook up, So I guess concerns is just that we don't have any widespread big catastrophe in America.
You mentioned 9/11, and you've been on Cozy Nook Farm since 1985. Was 9/11 the only time that you saw maybe a dip in business because of low economic confidence, or were there other times in that 40 years that you saw the big economic picture coming home here to Cozy Nook?
9/11 is certainly the one that sticks out in my mind. Especially because of the timing. It was right at pumpkin time, so people were totally uneasy. And from year to year, yes, we don't climb in sales every year. We have years that we dip down, but really 9/11 is the only one that really had major play with us. People might ask about COVID, but actually COVID was COVID. The 2 COVID years was our biggest increase in sales we ever had, because people were so happy to get the heck out of their houses and come to and get out, that we actually had very, very good years during COVID.
Well, so the last question I have for you, Tom, is less of a question and more just opportunity to have the final words. If you think there's something that I should have asked about, particularly about pumpkins, the pumpkin side of your business, but if you think there's something I should have asked, or just something you want to leave me with, I want to give you the chance to do that.
I think you've pretty well captured who we are. We're dairy farmers at heart. We love dairy farming and farming in general, and we want to share that with our urban neighbors. And it's also good for business, because as a farm we smell sometimes, but we really don't get complaints from people. I always have to tell a story. I had a neighbor who moved out here from the city, and he had his whole friends out here for a big barbecue and whatnot, and we were hauling manure pretty close to his house, and it was smelling pretty good. And he invited all his friends. He had a nice loft up on top of his house. Come on up here. And so he brought all his relatives up there, and he says, look at all that land. That is the smell of open space. As long as it smells like that, I will have that open space there the rest of my life. So that's what we love.
Well, Tom, we'll check back in around Christmas tree season. But for now, thank you for joining me on Lake Effect.
You're welcome.
Tom Oberhaus is a co-operator of Cozy Nook Farm in Waukesha County. He spoke with Lake Effect Sam Woods as a part of our check-in series, where we hear from Milwaukee voices on the changing economic landscape. At WUWM.com, you can find more of our coverage on economic issues concerning Wisconsinites. Did you know you can listen to Lake Effect as a podcast? Search for Lake Effect wherever you get your podcast to download and listen on demand. In about 15 minutes, we'll tell you about a building on Milwaukee's northwest side that has lived two very different lives. But first, we'll learn how the library researched some local spooky places and notorious events for our latest Books and Beyond series. Keep listening to Lake Effect on WUWM. You're listening to Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. The library is more than just books, and our series with the Milwaukee Public Library called Books and Beyond showcases just that. We share resources, book recommendations, and some cool stuff you just might not know about. This month, we're exploring some stories in honor of the spooky season with MPL's Special Collections and Archives Department. They're hosting an event called Milwaukee Mysteries, True Crime and Paranormal, to take a historical spin on the theme with real people, places, haunts, and events in the Milwaukee area. To learn more, I'm joined by librarian archivist Casey Lapworth, who begins by explaining how their librarian take on spooky season came about.
We get a lot of questions, and a lot of people are interested in the whole true crime. I mean, we have a whole section in the library devoted to that. And I guess I just saw more like true crime stuff coming up on some of my TV subscriptions and they're advertising as, Halloween and spooky season. So, and I have a couple of coworkers here who are really into true crime. And so I thought, what if we can show people what we have on some of these? So that's why we kind of also brought out the paranormal stories, because people love a good ghost story, and there's plenty of buildings and places around here that are presumed haunted. I even heard something on the radio this morning that said some of the Dodgers players who were staying at the Pfister were a little freaked out over apparent hauntings. I thought, how perfect.
The ghosts are doing the work to throw them off their game, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, with all of our history, Milwaukee has its fair share. So if someone is interested in learning more about a ghost story they heard about or a true crime event in the city, how can the library and the Special Collections Department be used to dive a bit deeper into anything that might intrigue someone to head into the library and find out more?
Well, there's two places I would go right off the bat, and one isn't even Special Collections. We have newspaper databases, and we have one that takes the Journal, the Sentinel, and the Journal Sentinel back to some of its earliest times. And so that's the best resource, especially for some older things, or at least to get more context around something that happened. If we have had people come into the Zeidler Humanities Room and be like, I heard someone died in my building. How can I find that out? And the best thing is to look at the newspapers. And you can, if you're a city resident, you can search from home. Otherwise, you can come to any library branch, not just Central, and use our Wi-Fi or use our computers, and you can keyword search. And the other thing you can do, especially if it was a big kind of city happening where alderman or the mayor was involved or knew about it or spoke about it, you can look through archival papers. So you just go to archival resources in Wisconsin and you can keyword search by the name of the victim or the name of the criminal or whoever suspected. And the same thing with hauntings. I mean, just put in, some of the stories and you can keyword search some of that. And I was aware of the ones that we had because I'd helped process some of those. So it's very interesting. And then, of course, I'm interested, and then I go down a rabbit hole about all this stuff too. So those are the two main sources. I mean, you could always ask us too. You send an email to mplarchives@milwaukee.gov, or we have a ask a question box on our website. So even if we don't have special collections, we might have other stuff on it. Just by the nature of us being we're coming up on 150 in a couple of years. I mean, we are part of the community. And so what we collect, sometimes we just happen to have the stuff because we lived through the time with the community. So you never know what you might find.
We can attest to that here at the station because I know most recently my colleague Joy Power spent a lot of time at the library looking up the victims of the Bayview Massacre and going down a deep rabbit hole for a recent Bubbler Talk. So that's there to check out, and the library was a big help with that. So you mentioned there's paranormal, there's true crime victims. Some of this stuff can get like a little gnarly. And while people are probably intrigued by it, maybe they're unsure about these topics or what they might find. Are there any reassurances that you can share with listeners about what kind of materials are accessible to the public?
Most of what we have is not anything graphic. We don't have graphic photos. We don't have police investigation files. We don't have any confidential. The police keep all of that. Most of what you'll find, at least some of the stuff I've used, is just times where it was mentioned in the city archives, or it's about the aftermath. So you can come and just look around and you can read more detail if you want. I have some newspapers I'm putting out, so there might be some headlines of stuff, but there's no graphic images. We want to make this interesting for those who are really into it, but I don't want to turn anybody off.
Right. Yeah. So to get into some of the things that'll be highlighted for the event, the Milwaukee Mysteries event on Monday, let's start with a couple stories and we'll start off with a man named Klaus Linderfelt. Who was he? What makes this story stand out to you?
Well, he is very close to home for us. So he was our library director from about 1880 to 1892. And the story was, well, we've actually found proof of it in our own library records that he embezzled money from the library, from the city. He embezzled, at the end, they figured out it was like $9,000, a little over 9,000. Of course, I don't have that on hand to how much that's worth today. And the story is kind of strange because he had been doing it for like 10 years. And then they caught him and he admitted it right away. And his excuse was that being the library director put him in the upper echelon of society, and he didn't make enough to keep up appearances. So that was his excuse. He had a lot of wealthy friends in the area who supported him. They even paid back the money that he embezzled. People were donating to help pay back that. It was even people within the library. He was really well liked. And he was thought of very well. He was the president of ALA, the American Library Association. And of course, then he finally pleaded no contest. And then he got a suspended sentence. And then there was some other drama about him getting another job and where was he? And then public sentiment started to move against him more. So he kind of disappeared. And then as I was reading some of the papers, it was funny because it was almost like an Elvis kind of sighting thing. They'd be like, oh, somebody saw him in Boston. Oh, he's in London in a bookstore. But he did disappear right about the end of July, early August. Nobody knows exactly where he went, but he ended up in Paris where he studied to be a doctor and his family joined him about 2 years later. So I don't know what kind of formal schooling he went to be a doctor in 2 years, but in 1890s, that could just be reading a bunch of books. So
right, and he remained in Paris. He never came back to the States.
Yep, he's buried in Paris.
Wow. Okay, interesting. Well, up next we have, maybe people don't know the man, but they know perhaps the event that happened here in Milwaukee. We have John Schrank. Why is he rather infamous here?
Well, he attempted to kill Theodore Roosevelt when he was campaigning here in Milwaukee I believe it was 1912. And so we actually have the papers of his court case because he was tried here in Milwaukee. So that we kind of stumbled upon within our city archives kind of collection. It had never really been processed. And so pretty early on when we started reprocessing and putting stuff on the web, our finding aids, is when we redid it. And then we kind of discovered about this guy. And he was really something else. He wrote a manifesto. It was printed in the paper. He believed that Theodore Roosevelt had secretly assassinated William McKinley. And so William McKinley showed up in a dream to him and told him no third termers, because it would have been Theodore Roosevelt's third term. Roosevelt lost a third, but so he had a dream, and that's why he decided he was going to kill him.
And he was following
So-
Teddy from like New Orleans up to Milwaukee on his campaign trail, right? It was a long
Yep.
game.
Yeah, he kept coming. And then somebody talked to him, I think later on when Franklin Roosevelt got his third term. And he said, because he was declared insane. And somebody quoted him in one of the articles I just read, and they said, well, he said if he had been out, he would have interrupted that. So in other words, he would have gone after Franklin too.
Ooh, yep. And he actually was also imprisoned here in Wisconsin as well, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So some of these figures, it's like really interesting, ominous local history. And then we have the paranormal. And if people want to read more, there is a story we did on Engine House 35 being haunted, built over the grounds of Fairview Mausoleum. And lastly, I'm sure you have a good amount of general Halloween type materials, right? And ghost stories, just kind of fun things for people to
Yes.
peruse.
So, I mean, we have some like advertisements with pumpkins, and I think my coworker found something with like a big witch on it. And then we have plans to buildings that are allegedly haunted. I can't confirm any of this, but that are allegedly or rumored to be haunted. So we have some plans and some newspaper articles that we'll have out. So it can just be kind of perusing. I went through our photo collection quite extensively too. So to see if we have photos of some of these places, even if we don't have any actual archival records, we still have older photos that are part of special collections. The newspapers are part of periodicals. And we're getting some of them out that you wouldn't be normally able to see because they're so fragile, but we'll get them out and we'll cover them up so nobody can touch them, but they'll be out for you to see.
Well, and I love it when all these archive materials are brought out because it's very cool to see something in person, something historical like that. So this and lots more coming up for Milwaukee Mysteries. But for today, Casey, thank you so much for sharing more about it.
No problem. Thanks for being here.
Casey Lapworth is a librarian archivist at the Milwaukee Public Library. Their program for exploring archives, Milwaukee Mysteries, True Crime, and Paranormal, will be held on Monday, October 20th. It'll be from 4:30 to 6:30 at night at the Milwaukee Central Library branch, and it's a free event, so no registration is needed. You can explore some pictures of the materials that we talked about, as well as find past books and beyond stories at wuwm.com.
Bubbler Talk, quenching Milwaukee's thirst for knowledge.
I'm WUWM editor Emily Files. On Teutonia Avenue, just south of Good Hope Road, there's a sprawling building constructed in the brutalist style of the 1960s. Concrete fins jut out around the windows, creating a repetitive pattern that's only broken by a giant stained glass window at its entrance. The stained glass looks like something you'd see in a church, but this building is the Milwaukee Fire and Police Academy. It's always struck nearby resident Nancy Proctor as a bit of a mismatch.
So I look at the building and I say, not built to be the fire and police training center. They do take care of it, but it's definitely, you can tell it's not really built for that.
She asked Bubbler Talk, what was it built for? Here's Carol Bluma, who has the answer.
This used to be a private girls' school named Madonna.
Carol is an alum of Madonna High School. The Catholic high school opened in 1965, run by nuns from an order called the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother. Another alum, Tracy Spurl, went to a Catholic grade school in Thiensville that was run by the same order.
And I think it was in about our 7th grade they started pushing this brand new all-girls school that was going to be built. One of the selling points were all the classrooms are carpeted. Everything will be new. You'll get individual attention because they'll have smaller classes, which was the case.
Tracy's class of about 60 students was the first at Madonna. The next year, another class was added, and another class the year after that. Carol entered as a freshman in 1968.
There was such energy at this school, the enthusiasm, the smiles, the chatter. I loved it.
But the students didn't know, behind the scenes, the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother were struggling financially. Madonna was built for 800 students, but it never even reached 300. Another problem was that in the 1960s, fewer nuns were available to staff teaching positions, which meant paying for lay teachers. Just 6 years after it opened, Madonna closed down in 1971. That meant Carol's class, the class of 1972, wasn't able to graduate.
I was so stunned, as we all were. And like the carpet had been taken out from under you.
At the time Madonna was closing, 2 other Catholic girls' schools, Divine Savior and Holy Angels, were merging. Carol says lots of her Madonna classmates transferred there. She finished her remaining credits at her local MPS high school, Custer.
It was an odd last year of high school for people.
Some of the Madonna alumni who had graduated from the school before it closed didn't even know it had shut down. That was the case for Kathy McEwen, who graduated in 1970. She didn't find out about Madonna's fate until about 50 years later.
So to me, it was just heartbreaking when I found out, but happy that it turned into be the Police and Firemen Training Academy. So it was very important to me that it's continuing on.
The building has continued on, and it's still being used for education, just a very different kind.
Attention on deck! Cadet check, GC! Good morning, GC!
Good morning, cadets. It's afternoon. Thank you.
That's Milwaukee Fire Department Deputy Chief James Zeke. He was greeted by a class of cadets as he led me on a tour of the Safety Academy. The cadets are sitting in a classroom that the Madonna students probably used more than 50 years ago.
So again, this is what we have done with all of our classrooms, slowly updated them to modern technology.
Yeah, it doesn't have like 1960s era desks or anything.
Fresh paints, fresh desks, fresh carpets, but the bones of the building are still the same.
The city of Milwaukee bought Madonna High School for $3 million in 1972 and relocated its police and fire academies there. According to newspaper articles from the time, it was a big upgrade. The police had been using a cramped floor in the city's safety building for training, and the fire department had been using an old elementary school. Milwaukee Police Training Director Captain Timothy Garkey remembers when he found out that this building used to be a girls' high school.
They told us when we were newer to the building, and it kind of made sense. Some of the facilities are more geared toward shorter people that might be in middle school. For example, the showers downstairs, the shower head is about mid-chest level for me.
But the first responders have found ways to adapt to the space. The basement now houses a firing range and mock street, tavern, and apartment scenes where police trainees practice their responses to different scenarios. Garkey shows me the street scene where storefronts and pedestrians are painted on the walls, and there are props like mailboxes, cars, and garbage cans.
What's cool about having this is that it allows us to do training in a controlled environment where we're not out in the public with whether it be distractions or people observing our techniques, and it's really just a sterile environment where we know that it's safe.
Although areas like the basement have been altered for police and fire training, some of the rooms, like the auditorium, are like time capsules from the 1960s. They look like they haven't changed at all. There's also a small chapel from the Madonna days that is now used as a classroom for police trainees.
It's just interesting how they used it as a worship space, and we use it for scenario space. Same building, but very different purpose.
Fire Chief James Zeke says his department uses a lot of space outside of the former high school building for its training, including a burn building where rooms are set on fire for practice. He says overall, there have not been many major renovations to the former Madonna school.
I wish the Catholic school would have been able to flourish as it was planned to, but I think it was definitely a benefit for both MPD and MFD. It's a great location, great building, good bones, and it fits most of the things that we need. So obviously it's outdated, but yes, we are making do with what we can.
He says there have been discussions about whether the building still fits MPD and MFD's needs, but it comes down to budget. In recent years, the Madonna alumni, who are now in their 70s, have started coming back here for reunions. Kathy McEwen helped organize the most recent one earlier this year.
And it was a big success, and I even borrowed a uniform, which I still have to give back. But I still have it, that I borrowed to be able to wear it and walk down the halls with my uniform on.
Kathy also organizes informal reunions on an almost monthly basis at an Uno's Pizzeria in Menominee Falls.
Whoever wants to come for lunch and chit-chat and look at pictures, we can, because to me that's important, to keep the spirit of Madonna in our hearts, alive. So, and with pictures and talking about, that's really important.
I met with Kathy and 2 other Madonna alumni, Carol and Tracy, at their former school. Here's Carol.
You can remember the other bodies milling through the halls. And, the bell ringing and just taking the pathway to your next class.
The alumni shared some of their memories with Bubbler Talk question asker Nancy Proctor. So what's your reaction finding out a little bit of the history?
I'm pretty excited. I think that's really nice. And I'm so glad that it wasn't destroyed, because there's so many buildings that have this kind of distinctive architecture that people can't repurpose or they don't want to bother. So that's really nice to find out what it was.
We're so glad you asked.
Since it was only open for 6 years, there aren't many people who can keep the memory of Madonna alive. So the alumni are happy to share their stories about the short-lived high school that had a lasting impact on their lives.
Support for Bubbler Talk comes from Palermo's Pizza and Educators Credit Union. What have you always wanted to know about the Milwaukee area? Visit wuwm.com/bubblertalk to submit your question.
In a few minutes, we'll speak with the director of a short film about a woman's fertility journey. But first, we'll visit one of the Yemeni coffee houses that has opened recently in the Milwaukee area and learn about their approach to roasting. Keep listening to Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. This is Lake Effect on Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. We're continuing our series on local Yemeni coffee houses. There's been a trend of these shops opening in the last year. The shops import beans from Yemen, which some call the birthplace of coffee. WUWM's Eddie Morales and Mayan Silver take us to Kawa House in Oak Creek, where roasting beans is part of the customer experience.
So Mayan, we're at Kawa House in Oak Creek. There's something unique about this coffee shop compared to the few that we've been to.
Yeah, you can kind of hear it in the background, the curr of the green coffee beans that are sitting in the roaster right now that Tina just put in there.
We'll hear from her soon.
It's pretty cool because this coffee shop does their own roasting, and so we're going to find out all about that, how that works, what makes the Yemeni coffee special, and how it gets, processed into the drinks we all get.
Tina Conley is the co-operator of Kawa House. She explains their beans come all the way from Yemen.
Our coffee originates in Haraz and Sanani, Yemen. And so our founder, Ibrahim El-Sabani, is an 8th-generation coffee bean farmer. And so his family farms are in Yemen, and we are directly sourced. We are the only location in the United States that gets these beans.
Conley says Kawa's beans are grown and hand-picked in the Haraz Mountains.
While traditional methods are used to harvest the beans, roasting them requires a modern process. Most franchise locations, including this one, use a Diedrich drum machine for roasting.
Conley says the machine is almost like a showpiece. It sits in front of the counter on the north end of the shop. Its silver, brushed metal casts a dull reflection. Conley says it's designed to slowly heat the beans and then draw more flavor from them.
We watch how it happens. The beans are visible through a small circular window on the machine. They gradually change color from green to yellow.
The beans crack twice before falling from the drum to the cooling tray. That's where a metal arm spins clockwise, keeping the beans moving so they don't burn. Conley says customers often ask about the machine. It's an opportunity for her to engage with guests.
The whole concept of this place, it's a full experience. We have, families sitting here sharing a pot over conversation. I mean, it's a whole thing. We want you to sit inside. We want to talk to you. We want to tell you our story. We want to tell you our origins, where we're from, how we make your coffee.
Conley is a Milwaukee native. She has about 30 years of restaurant experience and a background in real estate. Her husband is Palestinian. Kawa House is a franchise that started in Michigan.
Conley explains how she and her sister-in-law, Dowlit Abdullah, ended up opening the first location in Wisconsin.
The franchise was looking for a location here in Wisconsin, and they contacted me because I have a lot of contacts in the Muslim community because of my husband, and so they knew that I would know of locations that were in the area that would accommodate the community here.
Kawa, which is Arabic for coffee, is in Oak Creek's Drexeltown Square. Conley says the community here is a diverse one.
Yeah, we're definitely probably at that 60-40 mark where 60% of the clientele that walks through the door has never been to not only this location, but never been to a Yemeni coffee spot or a Yemeni tea shop before. So there's a lot of education on that side of it with letting them know exactly what it is about, where it comes from, the ingredients, the recipes.
Conley serves us mofawar. It's a medium roast coffee with cardamom and cream. Here's my reaction.
Yes, I really like this. It's not bitter, it's not sour, it's really like a nice roast.
And so this is the same blend of spices and coffee. This one just has the milk, and this one is without the milk.
I hate to say it, but I don't even miss the milk. It's really nice. I could see myself drinking this, in the morning and not, maybe this is the way I can lower my cholesterol.
Kawa offers traditional Yemeni drinks like the Yadani chai and kisher with coffee husks and ginger. They have pastries too, like the cheese-filled honeycomb bread and buttery and flaky sabaya.
Conley says after a year of being in business, she's most excited to introduce Turkish and Yemeni recipes to the community.
That was WUWM's Mayan Silver and Eddie Morales reporting from Kawa House in Oak Creek, one of several Yemeni coffee shops that opened in the area recently. You can find Mayan and Eddie's stories about other local Yemeni coffee shops at WUWM.com. More than 180 million women experience fertility challenges around the world, and while each story is different, the struggles and emotions are often universal. The short film Trying tells the story of one woman determined to have a child in the face of infertility and captures her persistence to get the one thing that she can't have. It's co-written and directed by Milwaukee native Emily Alprin. She joined me in 2023 to talk about the short film. You wrote this along with Abby Wathen, who stars also as the lead. Can you share with us how you brought this project to life together?
Yeah, well, this is in fact Abby's story. Way back when, my God, I think it was, 2018. She was a dear, dear friend of mine, Abby, and a wonderful actress, an absolute star. She shared with me her story of infertility. And she said, I have a script. Can I send it to you? And it was heartbreaking, in part because I love Abby, and in part because I learned she was not alone. 186 million people suffer from infertility, and a staggering 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. So while our film is based on Abby's true story, it's really also the true story of 186 million people that are more or less suffering silently. And it just felt like a story that needed to be told.
Yeah, despite the prevalence of it and the fact that so many people will go through it, it's still not talked about, even among friend groups. Like when you're fortunate enough to be let in on someone's vulnerability and their struggles with this, it's a powerful thing. So what was it like to work with Abby to bring the script to life and to get the visuals to life and to give this story a bit of a different meaning and perspective for general audiences?
Working with an actress who has gone through something very traumatic and has written about it, and then having a set of people as she remains vulnerable and available was really hard. In part, it was just nurturing a sense of safety on set and just really taking care of Abby. And then as a director, It's how do you tell this story, right? How do we create a story that people want to watch? It's a hard subject. So I think in part for me, it was adding humor. It was adding moments of levity, trying to find any fun in trying to conceive, adding also some magical realism, wanting to make the film watchable, but also honest. So visually and emotionally directing a film where Abby going through something is not only a brilliant actress in her own story, but also create a journey that 186 million people who haven't had their stories told see themselves as the protagonist.
I do think it balances those two sides very well, especially for a short film. And it opens with various scenes and the phrase, "Here I am trying to get pregnant." So can you share some of the scenes and examples of the, we'll call it home tools, home remedies, that the character was hoping that would help with her fertility?
Yeah, it's amazing, the home remedies that people try. So a lot of this is like wellness, right? If you're trying to get pregnant, it's really important to be as healthy as you can. So it's eating well. It's like taking those disgusting supplements and making smoothies that you don't want to drink. It's going to restorative yoga classes. It's having acupuncture. It's inviting your shaman friend who's going to like put crystals on you and somehow realign your chakras. And then it's the sort of monotony of this cycle, right? Like the woman's cycle, which was, as a director, actually really fun to work with because I could sort of base this entire film on the woman's cycle. But, testing your ovulation, when are you ovulating? And then having sex, right? Which is just not fun anymore. It's just a job. So that was fun. That first act was really just sort of diving into the home remedies and actual needs to conceive.
I also want to talk about some scenes in here that are from a phone, like film from the phone. I assume it's a true source material from Abby. Why did you decide to include these amazing, intimate pieces of content from her life? Did she bring it up? Was it something she wanted to do from the beginning?
I think it was important to both of us that part of this was healing for Abby. And I don't think she ever imagined it growing to the scope that it grew into. I think in part this was an exercise in moving through a traumatic experience, right? So there's, spoiler alert, but there's this footage of her actual parents when she's telling them that she's pregnant. And it's like, I mean, they're neck and neck of the acting ability in this film. Like they're so good, and it's because they're finding out that their daughter, their youngest daughter, is having a baby, and it's just this beautiful moment that how could you not include? Mm-hmm. And then there's another moment that we sort of recreated because Abby's actual husband Ryan is not an actor, and didn't want to be in this, so we sort of recreated that.
To go back to a bit of the structure and the cycle, there's some nice, simple, clean, but powerful structure to this whole film. It has key phrases and then strictly visuals around it. So, we start with, here I am trying to get pregnant, and then to add to the story, here I am telling myself that everything's okay. So how did the script evolve? Did you know you just wanted these key points, these simple sentences that have so much meaning and loadedness behind them?
Yeah, well, Abby originated the first act of Here I Am Trying to Get Pregnant. I mean, that was Abby. And I think as the story unfolded and, she knowing something is wrong, you're telling yourself that you're okay. Like, this is going to be fine. I've worked so hard to get this. And this is something that I don't think language really, we don't need language here. We need the voice in your head that is comforting yourself. Even when your doctor says everything's fine, but there's some part of you that knows that something is off, something is wrong. It felt really important to me to keep it sparse. That was important to both of us.
This story is just one example and represents over 180 million women who experience or are experiencing fertility challenges around the world. So how do you hope this short film adds to that conversation?
I think there's a lot of processing that women don't go through. I think there's a lot of shame attached to the perceived failure to conceive. We're told as a species that we need to keep the species going. It's written into our body. And when you can't conceive, it almost feels like a betrayal of your own womanhood. And it feels bad. And then you're constantly bombarded, right, with the reminder of what you can't do. There's babies in shopping carts at the grocery store, and then the older siblings that are sort of lagging behind in the sugar cereal aisle. There's pregnant women at parks. There's the baby showers. There's Mother's Day. There's your sister-in-law with 4 kids that you see at Thanksgiving. There are these endless reminders of the one thing that you want more than anything in the world. And no matter how hard you try, you can't get it. So I think what's been really the most meaningful part of making this film and taking it on the road is the conversations that continue after the Q&As. Women approaching me in the bathroom saying that they saw their story told on film and that they never told anyone about it before. And now they want to talk about it. And, that's healing. And that just feels so important and really everything that we wanted. What started as Abby's healing journey has sort of moved into as many people who see this can heal as well.
Milwaukee native Emily Alprin is the director and co-writer of the short film Trying. We spoke in 2023. And that's Lake Effect for today. I'm Audrey Nowakowski. Joy Powers, Sam Woods, and Excrit Nunez join me in producing Lake Effect each week with help from Graham Thomas. Becky Mortensen is our executive producer. Emily Fowles helps edit the show. We also heard from Maria Peralta Ariano, Jimmy Gutierrez, Mayan Silver, Eddie Morales, and Taryn Powell from the WUWM News team this week. Jason Reevey is our studio engineer. Michelle Maternowski is our digital manager. Valeria Navarro-Villegas is our digital editor. Trapper Shep wrote our theme music. If you've missed any of Lake Effect this week, you can find all of our conversations at WUWM.com. If you'd like to take us on the go, simply download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us today, right here on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.